Gentlemen, you are watching the Potsy and Tino show.
It's the Potsy and Tino show. Talk the facts and let opinions blow. Laughs, hot takes, and maybe a rant. Two best buds with a mic and a plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the Potsy and Tino show. I am one of your hosts, Rob Potsy Potchak, and I'm getting ready to actually introduce our special guest until Tino arrives. He is Junior Radtke, who was with me my whole weekend in Charlotte, except for like the first 2 hours I was there. Well, 4 hours that I was there. Was it 6 hours? I don't even know how many hours it was I was there. I just know that the trip got over with faster than it took to get there is what it felt like.
Absolutely.
So for those that don't know, our theme song is normally brought to you by Adam's House Cats, so we still want to give them the old plug. But on top of that, we do have the new theme song. Thank you to Roderick Strong for bringing us into the Potsy and Tino show. Tino should be joining us later. He's got a previous engagement, but I wanted to give this moment and this time.
He's a very important man, that Tino.
Well, we'll get to what you're doing right there in just a couple mementos. So I want to go ahead and Michael Turner, what's going on with you, sir? We obviously are just getting started, but I did want to go ahead. I think I've got it up here. Oh, there we go. Junior Radtke discusses his first Heroes Convention 2025. By the way, I think it was like the 43rd of these consecutively.
Wow.
And it was
That's
your
awesome.
first. It's been like, I don't know. Overall, it's probably been about my 12th. So why don't you go ahead and start talking about like what it felt like for you?
Well, I mean, it was an amazing experience, a little overwhelming. I've done cons before, but never Heroes Con. And this is the first con that I've ever attended as any kind of exhibitor or attendee or artist that was almost 100% comic books. So many of the comic book conventions that are out there now are more multimedia conventions than they are comics.
So they are not Comic-Cons.
No, well, I think a lot of them have started to rebrand themselves as like Fan Fests or Fanboy Expos. And I think that's a much more fitting name for those. But no, it was amazing the few times I got to get up and walk around. Just the sheer number of, just awesome indie talent, but then so many industry professionals to legends that were on site. If you're a comic book fan, it is definitely the convention to go to as far as I can tell, because you can get anywhere from Neil Adams, Arthur Adams. You've got even guys like Ryan Benjamin, and one of my favorites, Don Simpson. I'm a big
Megaton, man. Absolutely.
My favorite comic book of all time, and this is going to expose me as the comic book fan that I am, but Savage Dragon versus the Savage Megaton Man has always been my absolute favorite comic, just because I love the way that those two guys like did their style against one another.
Now you obviously still have your voice. Like before this show is over, I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to be like.
Well, so you are. I don't want to say carnival barker, but when you're going, you go, and you're full speed ahead until the brakes fall out. But and you wake up and it takes you a little bit of time, but you get the juices flowing again, and before you know it, you're right back in it, man. It was very impressive to see.
Well, that's not exactly it though. The carnival barker says the exact same thing to every single person.
Oh, sure. No, you
I
modified it.
I do not do that.
No.
I and you know what? It's interesting because I kept my voice, and in fact, I feel like I've got a good voice going right now.
Some heft. You got some heft in that voice.
So far, but that's because our sponsor tonight is Wild Turkey American Honey, and
Yes.
that way I get the wild turkey and the honey going down. No, I'm kidding. I haven't started drinking that, but as out, I will. And wouldn't that be awesome?
Throat lubrication is what you're talking about.
Wouldn't that actually be awesome if Wild Turkey American Honey was sponsoring the show? You can.
It would be.
Don't worry, we're cheap.
What about Michter's? What about Michter's?
Absolutely. And but Junior, I want you there, and if you don't mind going behind the scenes a little bit, and instead of just being this confident person that you are right here,
Sure.
kind of give some of that insight as to because the first day didn't exactly go the way that you wanted, did it?
Well, to be fair, it went about as well as I expected it to. I didn't go into Heroes Con with the greatest of confidence. I was confident in our book. I was hoping that people would like our book. But when you're put in a situation like that where you're, a needle in a haystack, essentially, you do run that risk of, just getting passed by. And,
And by the way, I feel the same way.
right.
Like
So,
the needle in the haystack, like the people that came to see me and actually came to find me are year over year
right.
recipients of that. So continue.
Yeah. So when you take into consider, I didn't bring a whole lot with me. I basically grabbed what I could find on hand, which wasn't much. I was really banking on, Dreadmutt. That was the big thing I was focused on. And then you take into account that, most of those people have never even heard of me. They've never seen me before. It's one of those things where, yeah, like you just said, doing cons it's its own business for one. And the way you do it is you put in the time, you put in the effort, and you hit shows over and over again. And eventually people who see you, they get to know you, and they start to have more faith in the fact that, okay, this guy's not just going to, show up and disappear. He's going to be around a while. Let me see what they've got to offer. And then you have a greater chance of converting fans into whatever it is that you're going to do moving forward. Like I said in my Instagram post, kind of recapping, my thoughts on Heroes Con. I had a great time. Ultimately, it was a very positive experience. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm a 45-year-old man who is just now taking the idea of getting into doing comic books seriously. And when you consider how many people are like going hard into comics from the day they leave high school, if not sooner, it really does make you feel like, am I wasting my time? Is there room for me? And, the good thing is like, once we figured out kind of like what the motives of the audience was for this show, which was to look for original artwork. That seemed to be the big thing that a lot of people were looking for at this show this year. I made the decision to go ahead and unpack all the sketch cards that I currently had in a binder, and I put those on display, and those did a really good job of bringing people to my table, at least to take a look around. And it converted into a few commissions, which was great. And it also converted into a couple purchases of Dreadmutt, which was awesome. So I think if I had it to do over, knowing what I know now, I think for future cons, having more original artwork for people to sift through, I think is a good idea. Having that readily available on display is a good idea. And then I think honestly, I think once we have Dreadmutt 2 done, I was saying this to you before, and you said, well, the first book's going to sell anyway because of the fans that you have accumulated over the years.
Sure.
But I think in order to catch people who maybe are just coming up to look at the table because, my art catches their eye, or one of your other books catches their eye, and they don't necessarily know us, having two books, issues 1 and 2 done, issue 2 will help further sell issue 1. And because it'll solidify it as, okay, this is a story that's ongoing. This is a property that people are actively working on, and I think they'll be more open to making that purchase in the future, if given the opportunity.
Well, and we've obviously seen just from you and me sitting at Heroes Con from Friday to Saturday to Sunday, whatever, Friday to Sunday, if you want to say that, that people came back up to us and wanted to tell us what they thought of Dreadmut already.
Yeah,
and I would say it was overwhelmingly positive.
I really can't think of anything overtly negative that anybody had to say. Now you always run the risk of, people blowing smoke up your ass, but we did sell to a few people who said, "I'm going to tell you what I think," and they came back and they gave us some good feedback.
I specifically remember 2 guys that definitely bought it Saturday that came back up to us Sunday and told us straight up, they were like, it was awesome. And I totally caught all the 80s references. Now, we probably could have asked them if they really caught all of the 80s references, and I bet they didn't catch half of them.
Sure.
But we explained it that way. We told them what to anticipate. And going into it, that was what made them sit there and go, I have to have this.
Yeah.
And it made them go ahead and buy it. And what's up, Mr. Helios? Michael Turner, obviously, out in the audience. Mr. Helios, sorry you didn't make it this weekend. Michael, sorry you didn't make it this weekend out to Charlotte. But I personally, my feelings from what I took from how people actually reacted to the Dreadmut stuff is that I remember that somebody was looking at something else that we had on display, and I said, if you like 80s action films, you should take a look at this. And before I knew it, he was like, I don't even care about that other stuff. Tell me about this.
Right.
And by the end, he bought an entire set of Died Hard foil cover editions, and then he bought Dreadmut, and then he bought. So I totally told Junior to print as much stuff as he could and bring as much as he possibly could to the show. So he went out and actually made what we call a rough cut, not even an ash can, because it was higher quality than an ash can.
Right.
So he created a all pencil edition that he created 15 copies for. And this guy, like I said, came up looking at one thing, totally stopped looking at that, and came right over when we started talking about 80s action films and everything else. And before you know it, he was like, you had me at that. I need that. Which one is that?
Yeah.
Showed him each of them. I'm like, you pick out your favorite cover. He picked out the foil editions of each of them. And before you know it, we had $100 sale on our hands, and it was like, all right, here we go, off to the races. And it all goes back to the same thing that I said to you, Junior, before we even started. It's not necessarily about getting them to be a fan of one of the properties that we're selling. It's about getting them to be a fan of all the properties we're selling. Remember that there was a guy that came up. He absolutely bought Dreadmut because that's what we had.
Right.
And he was like, hey, you guys want to be on my podcast, which we talk about our top 5s of whatever. And we were both like, yeah. But before you know it, he bought like 12 issues of Junior High Horrors.
Yeah. Yeah. That was awesome.
And I wish that there was more Junior Radtke stuff out there, because he would have bought it. And he was the one that actually even said, you guys had some original art where you actually showed that arm breaking or whatever, I'd have bought that. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, it's one of those things where it's got me kind of rethinking too. Like all Dreadmutt 1 is all digital, and so, but I understand the value of having original art, especially represented from comics.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, how can I incorporate that into my workflow moving forward without sacrificing a lot of time? So I've got that to figure out, but it's a good problem to figure out. And I think if nothing else, coming away from Heroes, it definitely gave me a better idea of how I can make the most of it for myself moving forward, as well as give potential fans, future fans, an opportunity to get what they're looking for, and make sure that everybody gets to go home happy and satisfied with the investments that they make.
The interesting thing there, and I'm not saying that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form. It's just this is like one of the last, I don't know, they say like last 3 real comic book shows, right?
Mhm.
So there's Baltimore in like October, and then there's New York Comic Con, and everybody
Did
that
you
I talked to that said,
did you say Cocktober? Did you say Cocktober?
no, I did not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I could have swore
No,
you said Cocktober.
no. I said it started with an O for October.
Fair enough.
I think you might want to make sure that your audio is correct. We don't try to get kicked off of YouTube. So
I was talking about roosters.
but but what you saw that worked here might not work at another show.
Sure.
So like a lot of the local shows are going to be more about prints and more about like something else. This one definitely, you saw it as soon as you started doing sketch cards again, like, and broke out all your sketch cards. That's when people started walking up going, I want one of these. I want one of these. You still had commissions left even after the show ended.
Yeah, I've got a handful of commissions I got to finish up and mail off.
Where I had a sign out that said commissions for a certain price, and I did 3, but I did 3 for people that I knew. I didn't do any for anybody else. I just
Right.
sold books. And yet, for those wondering, it was a damn good show for me. I
Yeah.
sold plenty of sets of Died Hard. I think that you and I figured out that we sold a pretty good, more than a handful of Dreadmutt, which, by the way, to me, what I thought was great was it wasn't just people buying what's going to be the retail releases of the Dreadmutt, but also buying your copy as well.
Yeah, I made up 15, and when I counted them when I got home, I had 5 left.
Yeah.
So, I
So,
mean, that was far better than I thought it was going to do.
and by the way, I don't remember you giving away a single copy of that.
No, I didn't give any of those away.
So,
So, sorry,
where-
Rob. I meant to give you one.
no, it's totally fine. I will see you again. Just keep a copy for me.
Of course.
Put it in a bag and board, damn it.
Yeah. So one thing that's another note I took away is, okay, I need to load up on bags and boards.
So you're getting ready to do a signing with somebody, though, aren't you?
So I've been in talks with the big local comic book shop here in Knoxville.
Okay, it's
Called-
not even just a big or local. It's a big shop. Go ahead and say.
Yeah, Nirvana Comics in Knoxville I mean, they've had some stellar guests over the last couple of months. They just hosted Joe Quesada. They hosted Mark Spears. They've hosted Humberto Ramos. They've hosted quite a few people that are big names within the industry. And in some cases, they've won some of those guests over to their shop over other shops because of just the environment that they have. It's one of those shops you walk into and you think you're walking into a movie set, because it is exactly what you picture a Hollywood comic book shop to look like, but in a reality rooted kind of way. It's the kind of people that you want to see. Everybody there is just an unabashed fan of comics and culture in general. Everybody razzes everybody, but it's all lighthearted and fun. And they've got a selection that is just hard to beat. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
if you
mean,
want, if you want to pick up anime, like some of the rarest anime, you can pick that up, or manga. If you want to pick up, independent books, you can pick those up. If you want to get the latest, CGC graded stuff slabs, you can pick that up. I mean, they've got anything, everything. And the thing I love most about it is they're not inundated with Funko Pops. They're not inundated with,
they're a comic.
tchotchkes. They're a comic book shop through and through. Yeah.
So, and I just have to say that, like, having met the Nirvana Comics people at Heroes Con, I mean, they really did seem down to earth. They seemed super excited about what was going on at the show. I mean, they really felt like comic book people, and if they're watching, by all means, I would love to come do a signing out there for any of my wares, but definitely for Dreadmutt, because I know that you're local there. Now, granted, it's going to take me 6 hours or 7 hours to drive there, so I might have to have a hotel room or something, just so everybody knows. But and I always joke about that. I always joke that, like, I feel like at this point, if I'm driving more than 2 hours, I deserve something like that. And
you can just stay with me, bud.
And you know what? If I was in Knoxville, absolutely, I could just stay with you. Your kid would probably be waking me up every morning at 4:30, but I mean, like that's if you sawing down the entire rainforest didn't do it.
Yeah.
So
I warned you, man. I warned you.
You did, and you know what? It really didn't affect me except that first night. So let's talk a little bit about the side stuff now that we talked about, like, Heroes Con.
Yeah.
That first night you came into town, you're like, all right, you brought whiskey. Let's do this.
That was the one and only night I drank.
By the way, if you remember, we really didn't see Darren after that. So
Nope.
our friend was there for, like, suicide prevention, and Junior just met him at the show. But Darren Shell is such a great person.
Very good guy, yeah.
A tremendous human being, and the fact that he tries to stop not only, like, former patriots from committing suicide, but just random people from doing it is such a huge and hard thing for anybody to have to do. And he decided to join us the first night, and Junior decided he wanted to go 1-for-1 with the champion.
Oh.
And I want to remind you, the champion is here.
Is that what that belt represents?
Oh, I'm sure it represents a lot more than that. But anyway, so we got to a certain point, and it was probably about 12:30 in the morning. By the way, the show started at 10 a.m. Friday morning. This is like 1:30, so we got about 8 hours before we have to be somewhere. And Junior sits there and says, "Why are you pouring such shitty shots, son?" And I was pouring full shots.
Yeah, but you did say you were about 6 shots ahead of me.
I was.
So
Junior sits there and says, "Well, go ahead and pour me 6."
Yeah. Rookie mistake.
And he got through about 1.5 of them.
Yeah.
And it's because Junior, to his credit, a man's man like William Regal.
Yes, sir.
A real man's man, like William Regal. He decided he was just going to try to drink all 6 shots at once without anything else. And he got about 1.5 in. He put the cup down. He stood up and he said, What did you say?
I said, "That's it. That's my limit." It was something like that.
He said, I hit my limit, and then he put 2 fingers over his mouth and tended to walk to the restroom. and after that, I turned the TV up. Now, for context, I just want to point out, for context, Junior, how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
He's 6'2", 365.
365, 370. Yeah.
And I am 5'7", maybe 5'8", if I actually grow my hair out.
Sure.
5'8" if I grow my hair out. 245 is what I weighed in at before I left for the show.
Yeah.
And I didn't even wake up with a hangover the next day.
Yeah.
I woke up tired as fuck,
Yeah.
but I had no hangover. But then Saturday night, for those wondering, we hung out with a bunch of the people that were actually like vendors at the show selling toys and everything else. Met this guy named Charlie, and Charlie's like, I know the chick at the hibachi place. We're gonna go to the hibachi place. You want to go? I'm like, hell yeah, let's go get hibachi. And while I'm sitting there for hibachi, 2 things happened that I did. Well, one I was okay with. The other one I was completely against. The thing I was okay with was the Jesse the Body Ventura impressions that began happening all around the table. The thing I was not excited about was apparently Charlie knew the people so well at the place that, you know, that bottle that they squeeze onto the hibachi grill that causes all the fire?
Yeah.
But he looked at me and he said, open wide. And he just poured it down my gullet. And I even joked that when Russ did it, the guy just kept squeezing until Russ finally closed his mouth. And he literally looked like the second half of a statue receiving the water that goes back and gets filtered back through.
Oh, man.
And Russ looked at me and said, you know, that was pure grain alcohol, right? And I was like, oh, God, because 10 seconds later, they look at me again and go, open again. And they just start. And I was like, I really, because come to find out what actually it was that they were giving us was not pure grain alcohol, thank God. But it was, however, like 50% vodka. So it was the high end alcohol content vodka. And I don't drink vodka.
Yeah.
So it didn't.
Well, I didn't see any of this. You know, I was after my my misgivings Thursday night. Yeah, well, it wasn't even really a beer. It was like a hard cider, you know.
Strongbow.
Yeah, I'm a foo-foo kind of guy. I like that kind of stuff. But it's yeah, I was like, dude, I'll hang out with you guys until you get your table, and then I'm gonna head back, dude, because it was humid. It was sticky. The weather outside the convention center was oppressive. And so I was more than happy to just get back to that broken AC room that we had, sit down, relax, and just veg out for a little bit.
I'll say that, you know, I absolutely hate the Westin's air conditioning system. It is absolutely garbage. But I do realize at this point, if I just sleep with none of the covers on me, I can actually feel comfortable for the rest of the night, turning that down to the lowest possible degree. Yeah. Unfortunately, anybody in the room with me is not happy about seeing me with my bare ass out, just, you know, ass to the wind so that I get a little bit of air on myself.
Well, there are a few times you're so white that I thought for certain that you had gotten up and gone somewhere. My glasses were off. I was looking for you, and I couldn't find you. I couldn't see you. Even when I put my glasses on,
But
even when I put my glasses on, I could barely see you.
tell the story about how Saturday night I came up to, or I'm sorry, Friday. It was Friday night. I come up to the room. I watched like half a SmackDown.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm a wrestling fan. I watched half a SmackDown. I'd already heard John Cena did this awesome promo. I'm sitting there in the room. I'm watching SmackDown. I can't hear the SmackDown over the fact that this guy is literally cutting down every forest in the world.
Yeah.
And he's fully dressed. His hand is in his pocket and he's sleeping. But he is making so much noise that after I hear that John Cena versus CM Punk promo, I'm like, I can't be here anymore. So I go downstairs and the drink and draw is going on. So I go to the drink and draw, and the drink and draw is just about to end. I do a couple sketches real quick. I walk out. I go over to the bar, and instantly, like 2 other publishers that I now know are like, hey, come sit with us. And I'm like, cool. So I go over and I'm sitting with them. I'm talking about the 3 of them and having a great time. Go up to the bar, get a drink, find out that all the tab is bought for us. And then as I am getting ready to finish my drink, I get a phone call. Hey, where are you at? And it's Junior. And Junior's like, hey, where are you at? Because he's like, I'm going to join you now because now I'm fully awake because I took a 2-hour nap. Shut up, Mr. Helios. So Junior calls me up and he goes, where are you at? And I said, I'll be up in the room in like 10 minutes. And he goes, all right, I'll just wait for you then. And
well, so okay, all right. So let me tell my part of the story here.
Sure.
So I must have woke up as the door was clatching, right? Because I wake up.
Make sure that it was like fully loud.
Okay, I wake up. The light next to me is on. The television is on at full blast, and I'm listening to people as they cheer John Cena out of the arena. I get up and I go over to the bathroom, and the light's on. I'm like, okay, he must be in there. And so I go back to the bed, I sit down, and I'm thinking, man, he's taking a long time. I go over, I knock on the door. Rob, you all right in there? And he's not responding. After about 20 minutes, I start to worry about opening that door at all because I don't know if I'm going to find him on the floor or what. But eventually, my needs overrode my panic. I open the door, motherfuckers. Well, the dude's not in there. The mother's not in there.
Fine.
I can say motherfucker. Okay, all right, cool. He's not in there. So of course, I do what I can.
So just so everybody knows,
you were trying to wake me up. Yeah.
I went to dinner earlier, and he said, no, I'm just going to stay in the room and I'm just going to hang out. He never said I'm going to take a nap. And by the way, it's already like 7:00, so taking a nap means you're in bed. but I went up to the room, and I mean it was like it was horrible. I couldn't hear John Cena cut the best promo of John Cena's career. Like that's literally how it was. I could not hear it. But I was like, I'll sit here for a little bit. I actually went to Whole Foods, got ice cream, brought it back up to the room, ate the ice cream, I looked in our little fridge that they had left us to see if there was a freezer area because I was like, oh, I'm only going to eat about half of it. Let me put the other half. There was no freezer.
No freezer.
So I was like, fuck, I just got to throw the ice cream away. Otherwise, I'm just drinking milk. Right? So I do that. And then I'm like, I don't want this son of a bitch to be asleep when I come back up to the room if it's going to sound like this. So I said, I am going to just walk downstairs. I turned 3 lights on in the room, including the bathroom light. Although I honestly didn't remember leaving that one on. But I do remember leaving the weird the weird disco light on that was in the room. And
Oh yeah, it was well lit. It was well lit. The room was well lit, and the sound was amplified. So the circumstances were right for waking me up. Of course, I'm fairly certain it was the last latch as you were leaving that
right,
actually
because,
did the
because
trick.
every time I actually said, Junior, you good? He would just talk in his sleep. He was like, I'm about to do something. I was like, what? Okay. So, but then that, you know, the night that we decided we were going to do the hibachi, you came
Yeah,
out for the first half,
right,
and you were like, I just ate like an hour ago. Why am I going to eat at a hibachi place? Which
right.
you really missed out because it was fucking amazing. But
Well, I'm just glad I didn't have vodka shot down my throat.
well, you might not have, because I think if you had just stood up, that little Asian guy that was doing that would have been like, oh no, Godzilla,
Listen, little man.
Godzilla, you know, like, and I wish I was kidding, but he might have actually said that. But you were there for the first half of it, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Russ, the ball, our bald friend Russ Farrington, who runs Capital Land Collectibles, who's a toy seller at the shows, just starts saying you should start doing your Jesse the Body Ventura impression. And I was like, but I actually think your Jesse the Body Ventura impression is better than mine, Russ, because he's sitting right next to me. And he's like, so what are you gonna do then? I was like, I'll do my Jim Ross impression, and we'll just do commentary for the entire dinner, right?
Yeah.
And you weren't even here for this.
No.
And before you know it, I'm sitting there going, it's a hell of a thing, Jesse, to sit here and watch all these gingers try to eat ginger sauce. And he'd be like, well, you know, let me just tell you, Jim Ross, that the whole thing, and before you know it, like everybody is crying, laughing, like, and we are so loud. Okay, there was 14 of us. We were so, and I think only 4 of us were actually the loud ones. We were so loud. How loud were they? We were so loud that the place turned their music up to like an unbearable level for like 8 seconds and realized it was so unbearable they had to drop that back down and let us be annoying. Dude, I spent, so before you got into town on Thursday, I spent Thursday with Russ.
Mhm.
Russ set up Wednesday night. He was like, hey, just let me know when you're going to get in town and I'll help you set up all of your stuff, you little meathead. You know, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, and he got there and he had no idea how to set up a banner. So like the very first banner he tried to set up, it shot back down and almost ripped everything to, like, I'm not even kidding. It really did. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
So he's just doing his Jesse the entire time.
He really was, but like he really was sorry that he almost messed up my brand new fucking banner. But no, super nice guy, but we were like, okay, now that I've got my stuff set up, we're waiting for you to get in town. We got 5 hours before we go to dinner. Like, what do we do then? I don't know. What are we doing? What are we going? Like, what's going on? And he's like, do you want to go get food? And I was like, yeah, I want to go get food. He's like, hey, there's a little French place right across the street. We walk in and all I see are French desserts. And I'm like, you brought me to a French dessert place? He's like, they have sandwiches. I was like, I don't give a shit. I see desserts. I just want dessert now. Like, why would I get a sandwich when I can get dessert?
Yeah.
And he's like,
that's solid math right there.
He's like, that's a good point. And I'm like, but I am going to get a sandwich. And stupid me gets a French dip where it's 98 degrees outside and I get a hot sandwich.
Yeah.
So we get done the sandwiches, and he sits there and he looks at me and he goes, "What do you want to do now?" I was like, "I want a beer." And he goes, "That's a great fucking idea." And I'm like, you damn right it is, right?
Yeah.
So he says, "Where do you want to go?" I was like, "Well, wherever it is, I'm not walking. Too hot outside, man. Like I've already sweat through my shirt to the point where my light gray shirt is suddenly a heather gray shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a dark gray suddenly."
Yeah.
So we go to the Charlotte Beer Garden, and there just happens to be behind us a bachelorette party walks in.
Okay.
So Russ is sitting there saying something. I'm sitting there saying something back. I'm not going to repeat it. I know.
Come on, repeat it.
No. All I'll say is it was a group of like 8 women. 3 of them went to the bathroom, and he was like, that's a gang, right? And he even said that to the bartender, who, by the way, when we walked in, we're sitting at the bar for literally like 6 or 7 minutes. Nobody is behind the bar. There's a guy at the end of the bar, and he's looking at his phone, and he's going through his Instagram, his TikTok, his Facebook. He's probably even going through WhatsApp, and I don't even know what the fuck that is. Okay, he's going through all of them, and then finally, like I sit there, I look over, I said, "Hey Russ, you think that's the bartender?" And he goes, "No, I don't think so. Like, why would that guy be the bartender? Like, I think he's waiting just like we are to get a drink." And all of a sudden, he gets up, he walks behind the bar, and goes, "Y'all want anything?"
Wow.
And I mean, he was the ultimate 2025 dude, bro. Awesome
Okay.
guy. But I mean, he's got perfect hair, and he's got that damn Top Gun Maverick mustache.
Yeah.
And no sleeves on his shirt.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Y'all want something?" And we're like, "Sure." So we order our beers, and then 2 guys that might be back home by the time that Crown or the Night of Champions happens with WWE.
Okay.
Sorry, that's the only way I know I can say that and not really sound offensive. Walk up.
You could just call them Middle Eastern fellas. I mean,
I don't know. I just broke my damn keyboard. So,
oh no.
it's all right. I don't care that the keyboard's broken. I bought it for like $30, but but yeah. So these 2 guys walk up, and the first thing they say to the bartender is, "Food?" And he goes, "Sure. Here's a menu. Go to this QR code, blah, blah, blah." By the way, I am absolutely, now that the pandemic is over, fuck those QR codes. Give me a fucking paper menu.
Well, we're living in a digital age, man. Everything's on the phone.
Fuck that. You know what? If you're going to do that, make sure that you have full 5G fucking signal so I can pull up your goddamn thing. Because if I can't pull up your menu, don't get mad at me when I sit there and go, "Couldn't get it. What you got?"
I will say this about Heroes Con, though. Every credit card payment that I had to do,
Right.
every transaction, I never had a problem with Signal. Never once had a problem with Signal.
Well, who do you have as your carrier?
Mint Mobile, which is a part of the T-Mobile network.
So that would be a AT&T network line, and that's great. Luckily I didn't have any. I think I really did break it because there's a little piece right here. It's fine. I don't really care. I don't ever put it up on the little stands anyway. But me with Verizon, I've always had issues. Like, not the first day, but by day 2, when everybody's doing a transaction, it's like,
Right.
Although surprisingly, and I even said this to you, I was like, there was like 80% of the shit was like done with cash,
A lot of cash. Yeah.
which was wild because I don't remember. I mean, I've done horror shows where it's like 90% cash, but comic shows it's normally like, do you take Venmo? I sure
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
It's like, do you take arms and legs? Uh-huh. I do. They're a little
Yeah.
bit messy. They're a little bit messy, and I do have the saber saw right over here. Come on over. You know,
Right.
like, but anyways. So what was your favorite experience about the weekend?
Well,
You know, since Tino's still not here.
and I'm thankful to Tino for that, giving me this wonderful platform with which to speak. Um, to be honest, man, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what was the best part of the show. I think had I not been so tired, you know, at the end of each day and so sweaty, I think I may have been able to be more fun after the show.
You were very
Um,
cranky.
I was, and then I ran out of nicotine on Sunday, so I was really hurting then. But I really enjoyed every interaction I got to have with people who came up to the table. When you get to have genuine interactions with people who care about the things that they're into, whether they're buying anything or not. I had one guy come by the table and he just out of the blue caught two Garbage Pail Kids sketch cards that I'd done. And then that launched us into a long conversation about how great the Garbage Pail Kids were and how awesome it is that there's a revival of it. And, you know, uh, guys that are our age that were able to collect them back in the day are able to get back into them now. And they're coming out with all these little figurines. And I told him how I collected the WWE Garbage Pail Kid crossover figurines, and I've got those at home. Um, and then it wound up leading to him buying one of the cards, and then he also bought one of the little pastel Posca paintings that I'd done. My Deathmatch Pikachu Posca painting that he bought for his daughter, which I thought was funny and cool, something that I would do. But yeah, just the interactions with everybody. It once you get to start having those interactions, it filled me with gratitude to just even be there.
There was a
Um,
moment. There was a moment where you and I were asked to. Well, actually, we originally he came up and he just started talking to us about stuff. Um, and I asked, or actually, I think you asked, did he have a portfolio?
mhm.
And he said yes, and he gave it to me, and I started looking at it, and it was an anime style, like manga artist.
Daryl
And
Johns.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I've followed him on Instagram, so I want to go ahead and give him a little shout out while we talk about him.
Yeah.
And his line art is just straight up single line, like no depth of field or anything else. So when he
Right.
colors it, it's all in the coloring. It reminded me of, and you might not know who I'm talking about, but there's a comic book artist by the name of Mike Choi who used to be colored by Sonia Obach, and his line art. He was basically the guy that was brought on for the very first X-23 comic.
Mhm.
So he basically designed the Wolverine clone X-23, who is now Laura Kinney. But he designed all that, but his line work was just straight up line work. And then his, at the time, I want to say wife, I don't know what they are now, but she would color all of it, and her coloring added all the depth of field, all the shade. So So like I was telling you, there's colorists and then there's color artists.
Right.
And her and Sonia Obach as a color artist really added all that depth of field and everything else to it, which really enhanced the way that the artwork looked.
Yeah.
I remember buying one of his sketchbooks a couple years ago at Heroes Con because I was just a big fan of the artwork. And there's a couple pieces in there. Now it's a black and white sketchbook. But even then, there were a couple pieces in there where it was the black, the gray shading. So all the gray tones and everything from her were in there. And it just truly enhanced the work. And we were looking at Daryl's work and we were like, he like when it comes to coloring, he gets it, you know? Yeah. And that was one of the moments where like it was funny because he had asked some of the best names in the comic book industry what he was doing right, what he was doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to name who he asked, but some of those people sat there and were like, "Oh, your proportions all wrong. Your this is all wrong, and you got to really look at that. Your anatomy is terrible." And I just sat there and said, instead of asking comic book creators if your artwork is right or wrong, how about you ask manga creators if all that's wrong? And the reason why is because this kid was doing these dynamic pieces where you were seeing like these huge differences in perspective images. Right. You were seeing like this and whatever. And I was like, it's easy to sit there and say that that the anatomy's wrong. Mm-hmm. It's easy. But in manga, they might not care as much if it's the action that they're trying to nail. And every single image he did was about the action rather than and you know what's funny is I don't remember looking at his portfolio and seeing anything except for that one image that you said this isn't as good as everything else. Mm-hmm. But I never saw anything that looked like a static image.
Right. So his portfolio was mostly made up of manga or anime characters and then some Sonic characters, all of which were in these just incredible poses that honestly, whenever I'm faced with drawing a pose that's super dynamic and you're trying to capture perspective, it's daunting. It can be daunting trying to wrap your head around how do I lay this out. And what I saw in every single image that he showed us, with the exception of the handful of just black and white images that were not colored, it was full of energy, full of excitement. And, listen, you look at some of the stuff that Frank Miller's doing right now, or has done over the last 20 years. And, when you break it down in a traditional comic book sense, you can say that's not very good. But if it captures the tone, if it captures,
Shut your whore mouth.
Oh, shut up. If it captures,
dude, I'm a huge Frank Miller fan, and what I'll tell you, I know. But what I'll say,
I'm not even dogging him. You're not even letting me finish, brother.
I know you're not even arguing it. I'll just say this: they put the wrong colorist on him, and that causes it to look worse. Continue.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can look at an image and think of it in traditional terms and say that's not very good. But if you look at it within the context with which it's intended, that could be the perfect image to tell the story, because it instead of, well, look at Mike Mignola. His style is so unique, so different, and so reliant.
Has been for 30 years.
Absolutely. And his use of blacks in his imagery, he gets away with not drawing. He doesn't draw a lot, or he does, but then he goes and he blacks in everything to capture the tone and the mood. But if you were judging Mignola on classic cartooning or classic comic book drawing, you would look at it and go, this isn't it, but it's different and it's right for the tone of the story that he's telling. I equate it to like Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis does not have a great singing voice in a traditional sense, but it's perfect for the bar blues songs that he sings.
With the 18-person band, sure.
Yeah, it's the right voice. And the way they cut his music, his voice is still up front, brother. He's not hiding amongst the 18-piece band, but it's the right voice for the right song.
They are still called Huey Lewis and the News. It's not
absolutely
not the News starring Huey Lewis.
Right. So, when it comes to, proportion, when it comes to things that could be easily critiquable, and I would argue you pick up any comic book by any professional, okay, you're going to find things in there that could be done better. It's just a fact. So we could sit here and critique each other all day long, but there are certain things that are just inherent in certain people's styles that make them unique. And if you're truly unique, you're going to be seen as an aberration that doesn't belong to a lot of people until society catches up to accepting it.
Well, you bring up a good point, and you also bring up something that I actually gave as a piece of advice to the 15-year-old named Neved that comes up to me every year. Like, this is now the 4th year in a row. He's 15 years old. Last year, he sold a Dr. Doom painting where Dr. Doom is like, I sold it for $650 at the auction. He doesn't get any of that. That's just straight up. That's the auction. And this year, he put up a piece for the auction, and it was a Galactus and Silver Surfer piece. And you remember when I was talking to my buddy Marshall, like right when we were in the auction, and he was talking about how him and his table mate Bernie were expecting like what they were expecting. So both of them expected $500 a piece for their images that they drew.
Right.
Marshall did a fully colored Batman with Copics.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie did a fully rendered Green Goblin that had the smoke going all the way up to the top of the page. Both of them 11 by 17s. Both of them got between $300 and $350.
Mm-hmm.
And Neved did a Galactus and Silver Surfer, 15-year-old kid.
Black and white,
$500 for his piece. And here's what made it really funny is I went up the next day to Marshall and Bernie, and I said, "You guys know Neved?" And they're like, yeah, he comes up every year. He shows us what he's been working on at the quick draw, blah, blah, blah. He won the quick draw too, by the way. 20-minute
yeah, his
draw.
dad brought that by and showed us. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was the not Nolan.
From Invincible, right?
Yeah, not Nolan from Invincible, but the one that the other whatever they're called. Viltrumite. It was the other Viltrumite, Powerhouse or whatever his name is that almost killed Mark. He drew that, but it was 20 minutes, and I mean it was solid. I mean it was a good piece. But I told Marshall, and Bernie that Neved got more than they did because the two of them always have a competition for who gets more at the auction.
Yeah.
And, because they're both amazing. They were sitting right next to Arthur Adams at the show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were doing cover recreations where one of them would draw one character, one of them would draw the other character, and then they would charge like $300 for the cover recreation. So there was one where they actually did the Hulk 181, Wolverine, Hulk, and Wendigo. And they even hand drew the Incredible Hulk 180. They did the whole lettering and everything.
That's cool.
A full cover recreation. And I was like, what did you guys charge for that? And they're like, $500. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys thinking? Like, that's $1,000 piece right there, right? And they're like, well, we don't get anything like that at the auction. And I'm like, why not? You know, like, and I love those guys. They are fucking incredible.
Yeah.
But they like they probably undercut their actual price. You know, like if they said, "Hey, a commission here is going to be $500," some people wouldn't bat an eye. And they even told me when we were doing like $125 commissions, they're like, eh. But as soon as we said $300 and they saw the quality of it, they were like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's amazing, when you're talking about, the original art. I have run into this all the time when it comes
it's all
to,
subjective.
well, you can underprice yourself to make your art look worthless, and at the same time,
I wonder if we did that when I put up the sign that said $50 for a head sketch. Because
I don't know.
I mean, I did 3 of them all weekend.
Yeah. Well, but you don't put that you're an artist at the forefront.
No, it does say writer, editor, artist on my
Well,
thing.
and also your table display, I mean, you're flanked by these 2 giant racks of comic books. So if I were walking, let's just say I didn't have any association with you, right?
Sure.
Let's say I was just walking the aisle. I would look at you as more of a vendor than I would as an artist because of the way you had your table set up. So I wouldn't even think to ask you, even though you had that sheet out there, that wouldn't be the first thing that would come to mind. I
Sure.
think if you were to find a way to display your comics, but in a way that also clearly displayed the fact that you're an artist, you probably get a lot more hits.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. A lot of people just walked up and they said, "This looks cool. What can I see?" And by the way, I really liked the fact that we had 2 specific Dread Mutt big images
Yeah,
available for people to see, so that was something that drew attention. Because I mean, like, we could say we didn't sell a lot, but I mean, we sold 20 or so copies plus whatever you sold of the rough cuts, which was another 10 copies. We sold 30 copies of a book that's never been out before,
right.
from an unknown artist and a writer that, for the most part, I would say people sit there and they go, "What else you got?" So now I will say this, and I want to, folks, for those of you that aren't really interested in this conversation, this is a big deal for us because Junior here runs a side company. Well, actually, it's what you do for a living right now.
Right.
You run a company that does straight to transfer stuff to like hats, t-shirts, all that type of stuff. But on top of that, you are trying to make a name for yourself in the comic book field because and you might say that it's not anything that you ever really cared about, but it's something that you've always been like on the outskirts of and constantly talked about. I want to do something at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely I've been on the periphery several times. I've had seasons of my life where, I've thought, maybe this is the time to do it. But I'm at a point now. The reason why I think it's really working for me now and why I'm sticking to it is because I feel like my art skill has gotten to a point where my self-esteem level or my self-confidence level, they're kind of on equal footing. Before, I would, I just didn't have any self-confidence, and so I didn't want to put anything out there that I was going to be embarrassed by later on. So,
Well, let me tell you something there, Gorilla. Sorry, I just had to throw in a little bit of a Jesse the Body Ventura.
sure, yeah. You never have to apologize to me when you bust into your Jesse, brother. Just do it, as they used to say. I can't say that. You told me I can't talk about.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say certain things on the show.
If
Back
to
when
go
we
back
were
to hold on.
building Commando, I just want to go ahead and tell you that Hulk Hogan was supposed to be one of the bad guys, and I said that lily-livered asshole is not allowed to be here. Terry Bollea is not allowed to be on the set.
To go back to what you asked me before, like what was my favorite point in the
Yes,
show.
yes.
So, I didn't get to spend as much time with you and Russ as I would have liked. But what time I did get to spend, you guys are dropping your Jessies, and then you're going into your JR. And I'm just thinking, man, I wish I had a Jesse to kick in here. So when we left yesterday, I think I spent the first hour and a half of my drive home just trying to nail or lock in a Jesse I was comfortable with. And as soon as I thought I had it, I called you on the phone, and we spent like the next 45 minutes just going back and forth on the phone about it.
What made it so funny was when I answered the phone and said, "Is everything okay?" You were like, "Let me just say I was in the depths of Tonga and I was having a problem trying to get the motor oil out of my breath." And it was like, what is he talking about? And that's not what he said. I'm just making something new up. But
Have you ever smoked opium in the depths of Da Nang? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Bobby.
yeah, it was so I always like to sit there and go, let me go ahead and explain it to you, Monsoon.
Yeah, yeah.
But
it's fun to get it to where it's not perfect. You're not going to sell tickets to people wanting to see it, but it's fun regardless.
well,
And
but like you said, I mean, like you had a 5-hour drive home yesterday, and
yeah.
you called me up about an hour into the drive, and you're like, I think I finally figured it out. And I'm like, what is he oh, it's Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
Like I thought he'd had an aneurysm for the first 8 times he tried to say something to me. And then all of a sudden he's finally like, let me tell you something, Monsoon. When I'm wearing the feather boa and I got the beanie on, you know that the Ultimate Warrior is just going to sit there and be a piece of crap. And you're like, okay. Of course, at the same time, I like for whatever reason, and I credit Will Sasso for this to not get me thrown off the air. But I feel like I do a pretty damn good Jim Ross impression. But I do the new Jim Ross impression, which means I have to close half my mouth when I do it. And there's no disrespect meant, but Saturday, you'll probably remember, I did a Jim Ross impression with the mouth open, and it actually sounded like the 1980s version of AWA Jim Ross.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then I had to sit and I was like, I don't like that version. That's not the version I remember.
But you have speeds now, so you can pick and choose which version you want to do depending on who you're talking to, if it's era appropriate.
But both of them sounded pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I sat there just explaining to everyone exactly what was going on back when Kerry Von Erich went up against Michael P.S. Hayes.
Who?
Except that then I want to sit there and I really want to go, by God, King, I just gotta tell you that everything we are talking about has been crazy. And I am not ready to turn the mic off. Like both of them, they both sound good.
I think so.
Except the Jim Ross I remember is that second one.
Sure.
You know, by God, he has been broken in half. As God is
If
my
you
witness,
want to hear about being broken in half, let me take you back to the depths of Da Nang when we were floating down the river. I
What?
promise I will not say the thing you do not want me to say, JR.
Right,
But we
because
used to stack them high back in the Baja. What's that?
Triple H will cut off your mic.
Well, won't he come out and tap me on the shoulder first and say, "Hey, you need to wrap it up"?
No, he'll yell in your microphone. He'll yell in your earpiece.
Anyway, like I was saying,
As God is my witness, in my 40 plus years in this company, I have never seen anything quite as crazy as Damian Priest just walking out the fucking cage. Oh.
Well, you were never in the depths of Da Nang, JR. Smoking with the natives some opium, getting high on the thermite paint.
You know, when I was back in the in Da Nang, we didn't have high-speed internet, JR, but we did have fiber optic cables. and Mr. Helios just said puppies. Yeah, we one of us have a Jerry the King line. Puppies. Like,
well, we were discussing the difficulty of committing to a JR because his cadence is, well, you take, listen, I feel like the reason why I can do a bad Jesse Ventura impression is because I already speak slowly anyway. Jerry Lawler is high pitched, high frequency all the time.
Well,
so to be able to commit to that is incredible.
The one thing that I had to tell Junior here is that Jesse Ventura is not a Southerner, so you can't give him a Southern accent. You gotta talk like you're from Minnesota and keep the cadence going for that monsoon. You know,
what
like,
you don't understand is I was taught how to assimilate around those I've been around as a part of my black magic teachings.
I don't know if you're allowed to say black magic teachings, by the way.
Oh, listen. I think one. Well, Tino's not here yet, so it should be all right.
Mr. Helios just said he'll work on his Lawler.
Beautiful.
You know what? I don't care if anybody works on their Lawler as long as they work on their Matt Stryker impression. I miss Matt Stryker as a commentator. He was a good commentator. Underrated commentator because he was so damn smart. It was like when Dennis Miller was on Monday Night Football, when he sat there and he said, "Let me just tell you something. I don't remember." Sorry, I got to stop doing that because I'll knock myself out. But he was like, this guy is out with a minor groin injury. I don't know about you guys, but if I sat there and had any issues with my groin, I wouldn't call it minor. You know?
Right.
And he only lasted 1 year. But
yeah.
Anyways.
He wasn't ready for primetime NFL.
Yeah, you know what? That's why they put him on Monday Night Football, because nobody watched it at that point. That's why they actually put him on there.
Yeah.
He said you can say black magic.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, I'll take the cosign for sure.
There you go.
Black magic will turn you into a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus.
So I do want to point out that you mentioned the Jesse Ventura impressions and everything, and absolutely, like 100%, the hibachi dinner that we had that you left early because you needed to go cut down more trees. I was absolutely one of the most amazing things that happened during that trip. I mean, Russ has been posting pictures of us from that the entire day, which is just insane. But I do want to say that my favorite thing was actually seeing Nived again. Seeing the 15-year-old kid with his dad, where his dad is actually supporting him.
Yeah, his dad's awesome.
And literally I said, let me see the book. And he goes, "Oh, you knew I had it with me." And I was like, "Come on, man." That's actually, I literally looked at it. I'm like, I might still be drunk, but come on, man. Right? And he comes up to me and he opens up this 11 by 17 portfolio that he's got. And it's a professional portfolio. It's got so unlike Daryl, where he had the matte finish protectors, his is fully clear, but it's the full. I mean, it's the one you buy at like Jerry's Artorama, Hey, this is Jesse the Body Ventura for Jerry's Autorama. And if you want art supplies, buy them here before certain Asian nations get them. Yeah,
how was that any worse than what how was that any worse than what I was saying? How was that any worse than what I was saying?
Well, it's not. That's the whole point. It wasn't worse. But no. So
they still love that meat down in the Baja.
We do down in the Baja in the Gulf of Tonga. Anyways, but Nived actually for the last 4 years now has brought me his portfolio, and what I think was hilarious, and I don't know if you were part of this conversation, but when I was talking to his dad, when Nived was actually still drawing the piece that he was trying to do for the art auction, it didn't quite make it, so he did he had the backup piece. The backup piece did $500.
Right.
But his dad was sitting there, and he goes, when all of you guys sit there and like talk all this really nice stuff about him, I'm the one that has to sit there and like bring him back down to earth. Yeah. And I said, no. I worked in retail management for 20 years. My whole thing is I'm going to give you your 80% of positive, but the 20% of negative is what you really need to listen to. Right. And what I love about that kid is every year he has worked on the things that I've talked about. You mentioned something earlier where you talked about the and folks, we've now gone an hour and 15 minutes talking about our Heroes Con, and Tino's still not here, so he's probably not showing up. Like he probably went, oh fuck those guys, I'm going to bed. But it's okay. Hopefully you all feel like this was a really interesting time. And yes, I would really like to talk about the John Cena pipe bomb here in a minute. But this kid, when he first came to me, brought me all these pieces that were penciled, inked, and colored, and that was it.
Right.
And I straight up told him, and I told Daryl the same thing. And Daryl actually had done separated, at least on part of it. But with Nived, I told him, show me pencils, show me inks, show me colors. And specifically figure out what you want to work on and what you want to be good at. Because right now, you're okay at all three. But when you're 11 years old and you're showing me this stuff, you have the ability to look at what avenue you want to go down.
Right.
You can be a master in any of those three. Hell, you can be a master in two or all three of them, but it's going to take you years to get there. So don't try to cut it down and say, oh, let me try to become a master in all three. You got to become a master in one, become a master in the other, then become a master in the third one. And I can see that in his art. And he actually only showed me, I think, one colored piece this year. Everything else was just inks. Now, at the same time, the reason why I brought this up is because you mentioned Sometimes there's a flavor of the month or whatever that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
His art is truly inspired right now by Daniel Warren Johnson, who is one of the biggest names in all of comics after doing you told me what it's not Nuke
Murder
Rooster.
Falcon.
It's Murder Falcon because Nuke Rooster is Jevin Loop.
Yeah.
But I do want to give Murder Falcon or Nuke Rooster its own little props there because Jevin Loop's doing something awesome with that.
That's a badass character.
It really is.
Yeah.
But he also did do a power bomb. Now he's doing Transformers over at Skybound. But I told Naved, I said, hey, it's totally cool to be influenced by him.
Mm-hmm.
But right now he's the flavor. Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld in the 90s were the flavor. If you drew like them, you could get work anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Then as soon as that wasn't the flavor anymore, even they struggled to get work. Not
Did
Jim.
they?
Not
Okay.
Jim. But Rob Liefeld actually got kicked out of Image and everything else at that point.
Well, Rob Liefeld is the creator of his own destiny. So, every time he burned a bridge somewhere, he always managed to build another one somewhere else. That's his superpower.
And while I agree to a degree, I think he got super hot before anybody actually said, let's look at anatomy. And we know that. He knows that. He's even said, I've never taken an art course. You know? And structurally, I've only taken 2. So, I mean, I'm only a little bit ahead of him.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely sit there and go, well, here's where I know when the anatomy of the arm needs to be longer so that it actually extends to a certain point, blah, 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 whatever. But that's the editor in me.
Right.
Regardless, Jim Lee wasn't always the most popular artist. So if you continue to draw like him, like Brett Booth, for example, didn't always find work.
Right.
Now, Brett Booth is looked at as one of the top artists again because Todd McFarlane has hired him to draw Spawn.
Right.
But a lot of people don't realize this. Brett Booth and his wife Jess were homeless for a while.
Yeah. And
this is after the whole Wildstorm thing.
Yeah.
Part of that's because they decided they wanted to house sheltered dogs and make sure that the dogs had a place to live before they did, which was a wonderful thing. But, you also, it's one of those things where it's like when you're on a plane and all of a sudden the oxygen mask come down, you got to put it on you before you put it on somebody else because you got to make sure you're alive. It's one of those things. And by the way, Brett's one of my favorite people in comics. He's one of my friends. And I don't think he'd have a problem with me saying that. But again, Jim Lee wasn't always the most popular artist in comics. So anybody that drew like him wasn't necessarily getting work at a point. My point there to Naved was, hey, it's always cool to have influence, right? So if you want to put that action stuff in there from him, that's great. Keep in mind, if he falls out of popularity for one reason or another, drawing like him is not going to help you succeed.
The hard part especially when you're learning is
you're always
it's learning how to manage the influences without becoming a clone. You don't want to become a clone of somebody else. You don't want to be the next so and so. You want to be the first you.
Exactly.
And one thing that I've done over the years is, I've been influenced by a lot of different artists, a lot of which don't even do comic books. They do other styles of art, and or they do animation, because I feel like my art tends to lean more towards like Saturday morning cartoon than it does traditional comic book stuff.
I'm going to stop you there. Oh, and I hope that you hold your point, because
is Tino here?
What's that?
Oh, is Tino here?
No. But the one thing that I consistently said all weekend long, when anybody sat there and said, "What's this about?" and they were pointing at the Dreadmud posters, I would absolutely, and by the way, 3/4 of the time, Junior's just sitting there. He's got a earpiece in. He's listening to music or a podcast or something. He's sketching a sketch card. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, the one thing I can tell you about this right here, and I'm pointing at the Dreadmud poster. The one thing I can tell you is that this is the most unique thing here. His artwork is the most unique art that you're going to see at any of these tables anywhere. It doesn't look like anybody else's, but it looks polished and it looks professional. And you know what?
You're gonna make me cry, bro.
No.
Stop
But Naved's dad, when he saw when he saw my poster and your standee, the two of those, I said, you see how the art looks here where you see the stippling, so it looks like old school 80s coloring? That's how the book looks. And Naved's dad said, oh, I thought that was just a printer thing for that. And I opened up the book and started showing him, and he goes, holy shit. And he hadn't sworn at all.
Well, I missed all that. Yeah.
And he was like, wow, that's beautiful, is what he said to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm telling you. And I told you multiple times, I'm gonna peel back the curtain a little bit. You seemed a little defeated Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
You did. You were like, man, it would be really nice if people were coming up to the table wanting to talk to me about my art and everything else. By Saturday, we figured it out. Put out your sketch cards, have a couple of the prints out. In fact, I remember when someone said, that print looks awesome. And I said, you need to check out the book. And you were like, well, that was all you selling it. And it just happened to be because I think I was over talking to you and I was doing like my Jim Ross impression.
Yeah.
Talking about a cosplay outfit or something. And it's like, would you look at that raven right there? That's so Raven. You know? And all of a sudden the kid's like, I really like this art looks awesome. I'm like, dude, the whole book looks like that. And before you know it, he's like, I want one. And I think he bought the regular book and the rough cut because we sat there and explained, we only have 15 of these. We're not doing any more under any circumstance. This is just the way it is. Like, here they are. And it was beautiful. Yeah. You know, but I'm telling you, like, I don't know if you'll ever be that mainstream artist, but I already told you, and for everyone out there listening, watching the show, whatever, fact of the matter is that Junior's artwork looks like a marketing campaign. It always does. And it's because he's been doing marketing for 30 fucking years. So when you see his artwork try to be a comic book, it's that professional. It already looks that good. In fact, he probably puts too much effort into it to make it actually look worse than it could look. By the way, Hideo Kojima, who does Death Stranding and was the Metal Gear guy, actually said he had to take some stuff out of Death Stranding 2 because people were saying it was too good.
Oh, wow.
But no, I'm kidding about that part. The fact is, though, that like you really have created something that nobody out there is doing. And it's important. And I don't mind saying this to a wide audience. It's a fact. And if Tino was here, he'd be like, explain it to me. But like, so Junior did this thing where he actually made these glasses, and he made these cups and everything else for the show. He made the hats. But that image that you made of Dreadmud, which is a perfect number 2 cover, by the way. already. You don't even have to work on your number 2 cover because that's perfect. But
Okay.
I would tell you, you might want to do another cover so that way you have something that includes more of how the story actually goes.
Right.
But he did this awesome piece where it's like Dreadmutt just like full action out, an explosion going on behind him, and it's on cups, it's on tumblers, it's on and the tumblers, the fact that they actually say 40% canine, 40% human, 30% attitude. Like, what amazed me about that is that the very first person that picked one of those up looked at their kid and was like, that's like your math. Because I was like, it's 110%.
Yeah.
And that, like, so I am going to have to teach Junior the art of the elevator pitch, because people are normally like, what's it mean? And it's like he's 40% canine, 40%. I feel like I'm doing a Jesse Ventura impression right now, and I'm not even trying. It's like, he's 40% canine, 40% human, and 30% attitude. McMahon.
Yeah, my pitch was, you like blood? Do you like guts?
There's gonna be that number 2.
Yeah.
Although you did actually say, do you like bones coming out? Because there is that number 1.
Yeah.
My whole thing was, do you like 80s movies? Do you like 80s action films? Do you like when all of a sudden the good guy sits there and goes, fuck a plan, I'm just walking in the front door? That's Dread. That's it. That's our pitch.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good one. I'll remember that one. I'll memorize that for next time.
So Junior, I feel like I've gone an hour and 35 minutes or hour and 31 minutes of talking about how Heroes Con was. Some big stuff happened in wrestling. It doesn't look like Tino's going to join us. I only have a couple specific moments in wrestling to talk about. Do you want to talk about them with me? Do you want to
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Because you're here, right?
I'm here. McMahon, I am here for the long haul down to Baja.
So first of all, we got to talk about this. Gunther, you're next. Come on, that's a pretty good Bill Goldberg impression.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need much for Bill Goldberg.
I mean, I didn't close the eye, but and I don't have the one clavicle that's up here and the other one that's like half range. But so 2 weeks ago we had the Jim Ross, I'm sorry, Jey Uso losing the title.
Mm.
Would have been funny if Jim Ross held the world title on WWE.
Yeah.
But we had Jey Uso lose the world title to a sleeper hold to Gunther, and then this week Gunther comes out saying that Jey Uso was the better man for 7 minutes. And we have Saturday night's main event coming up. Bill Goldberg for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Well, that promo Gunther cut, it came across like a babyface promo, where he was putting over Jey Uso, despite the fact having just beaten him. And I like the idea of them introducing, and he's always had a little bit of this in his character, but really making it prominent that he respects those who take him to the limit.
Well, and remember, even Pat McAfee, when they actually did that match at the latest PLE, he sat there and he went like this to him at the end of it. Although I think Pat McAfee should have still been knocked out when he actually was like, good job. You know, like the fact that Pat McAfee was on his feet by then really felt like it's like, okay, this really is fake.
Yeah, that did take me out of it too. But with Gunther, if you look back historically on his WWE run, when has he ever actually acted like a heel?
So he's an old school heel. He literally is just better than everybody else.
Right.
And because he's not American, he's instantly a heel. Now,
Right.
I do want to point out this statement from Michael Turner, where he said, "I love Goldberg, but too old, needs to retire." Here's the thing I'll say about this. Today, specifically today, I read that they are saying that Stone Cold Steve Austin has said, for the right match, he will come out of retirement one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Stone Cold is 60. Bill Goldberg's 58. Bill Goldberg is coming out of retirement, self-imposed, not-announced, whatever. Steve Austin, now after his match against Kevin Owens, has never actually said he's retired. Right? So it's not a retirement match or whatever. My point to this is that what they're basically saying when it comes to Austin is that for the right match, he'll come out of retirement, which, if I had to guess, is CM Punk at WrestleMania. And I would assume that they'll make sure that the video game has a cover edition of the two of them staring each other down or some shit.
Right.
When it comes to Goldberg, I hate to say this, if there is a legitimate chance that Goldberg wins this match and goes into SummerSlam as hold on. If there is, and by the way, Busted Open, Tino hates when I say this because he's like, you should be getting paid to sit there and plug them. Busted Open has been saying that Goldberg's going to walk out of Saturday night's main event with the world title, blah, 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 whatever. If he does, that means putting Bill Goldberg up for this match was totally justified because he had the ability to beat him. He then did beat him, right? And then he goes into SummerSlam against whoever, or Seth Rollins cashes in on him, which is perfectly fine as well. Like in a really crazy world, this is my booking scheme here. This is Vince McMahon. Right? I'm not saying it's Triple H. I'm saying it's Vince McMahon. Goldberg comes down to the ring. Gunther comes down to the ring. As they start announcing everything, Goldberg spears him. The bell rings. Goldberg picks him up. Does the whole jackhammer 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins comes down to the ring, and Gunther, who's angry, beats the shit out of Bill Goldberg and starts chopping the fuck out of him. Gets him to where he's got the spaghetti chest, gets him to where he's got roast beef from Arby's right here. You know, like why don't they actually put the Arby's logo?
You put logos everywhere else. Yeah, might as well.
Like in fact, CM Punk this week actually said that the Slim Jim table hurts a lot more than all the other ones. But why not put the "we have the meats" right here when you're facing Gunther? You know,
yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome if all of a sudden like they put a T-shirt on him that says "we have the meats"?
Yeah, and then he starts chopping them.
But anyway, so I could totally see a world where Goldberg wins, but then Seth Rollins comes down and takes the belt from him immediately.
Yeah,
especially if they go tsunami.
It's kind of hard to think because Goldberg's ego isn't going to allow him to come back unless he's getting an incredible payday, which is surprising that they announced this match for Saturday night's main event instead of for Crown Jewel, because that's where we all thought it was going.
Well, except Saturday night's main event is in his hometown.
Yeah.
So putting it in his hometown means that he can sit there and stay home, work out at the gym, do all that stuff. What I thought was really funny was I saw something today that said Goldberg will be on every Raw except for this week up until, so he was on last week, he was on the week before, and then he's going to be at Saturday night's main event. So he's only on 2 Raws before the whole, he's not on tonight, which means he wasn't even on 3 Raws before he actually gets his match.
Right. This is the go home for Saturday night's main event.
I guess Friday technically is,
Mm.
because
Now,
they'll do something that'll lead into something else there.
how old is his son at this point?
He's in college.
See, part of me wonders if the idea of keeping that bridge open, that door open, could potentially be so that his son can have
I
a bit
do
of an
I
easier time.
I do believe Gage Goldberg does have an NIL deal already,
Okay.
because even Scott Steiner's kid, the one that actually wore the chainmail one, he was going like this as a
Mhm.
football player. He's already signed to an NIL deal with WWE.
Okay.
So next in line is WWE's terminology for that, by the way.
Right. Right.
Not name, image, likeness. It's next in line. They like those kids that get signed to those NIL deals. So even Mark Henry's kid, Jacob, who is like a 4-time All-American, like high school kid going into college, he has an NIL deal with WWE, and that kid is good.
Well, have you seen Brock Lesnar's daughter?
I have. I think that they're staying away from Mia Lesnar. I mean, she looks just like her dad, which hurts her in more ways than one.
I don't think so. I don't think
I,
so.
I think that she is the next coming of Luna Vachon, if she
I could,
wants to be.
or she could be the next coming of the Brock Lesnar of the female division.
Sure. The difference, though, I think, is that they would want the Brock Lesnar of the women's division to look more like Beth Phoenix.
But see, I think that's the problem.
Oh,
Is
totally. Well,
yeah, the looks. See, I'm ready. I am ready for a
it doesn't matter
serious,
what they look like.
ass kicking. That's what I thought Shayna Baszler. That's what she was being set up to be when she was in NXT, and then they completely dropped the ball with her when she went to the main roster.
Well, they gave her where she beat every single person in the Elimination Chamber, and then the next night she bit Becky Lynch in the back of the neck.
Yeah,
Like, what the fuck? But I always thought that Awesome Kong was going to be that.
yeah,
I still think that there are people that could, like Rhea Ripley could still be that. Rhea Ripley is
sure.
really lined up to be the Brock Lesnar of the women's division, but they need to start treating her like she is a limited attraction. And
Right.
I don't think and with her age, I don't think that she's ready to be the limited attraction. But don't be surprised if her next contract puts her in that realm, just like Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns now, what's he work? 6 months out of the year, and he only works half
Right.
those dates.
Right.
And by the way, I'm totally fine with that.
Mhm.
Like, I love the fact that the entire crowd is still chanting OTC.
Mhm.
Although it's weird that he wears a shirt that says YTC. Like,
Right.
like why are you chanting the wrong thing, assholes? Oh, you know why? It's because Roman isn't on TV.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, I when it comes to the women's division and women's wrestling, I think we've been able to graduate further and further away from needing supermodel status in order to you know guys. Everybody looks back at the diva era as a black stain on women's wrestling, except for Jerry Lawler and Potsy. But for the most part, we're happy to see the wrestling be where it is now.
hold
And
on.
what?
The Divas era of wrestling, yes, when it started and it was all bra and panties matches, jello matches, mud wrestling, pillow fights, all that bullshit, like the Playboy pillow fights, 100%, 100% I agree with you, except for the fact that during that same era, we ended up getting Trish Stratus Lita, Candice Michelle, we got Eve Torres, we got Jacqueline, we got Victoria, who goddamn deserves to be in the fucking Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We got all of them actually.
Ivory.
So Ivory, absolute. Although Ivory's in the Hall of Fame,
Right.
A couple of those first names that I mentioned are. But Victoria, I don't need to see Michelle McCool in the Hall of Fame yet because Victoria is not in there.
Yeah.
So, but when you say the Divas era, there was quality people and there was quality wrestling. Don't ever take that away from those that actually were there doing it.
Well, okay. I'm not trying to denigrate the work that some of the female wrestlers were able to do, but it wasn't the vast majority, and they helped pave the way for where we're at now. So they have to get their props. But
even your Tori Wilsons, your Stacy Keeblers, your Dawn Maries, all of them put in their work.
See, I think the problem there is, I think there are some women that are built to wrestle, and there are some women that are built to be valets and managers.
100%.
The problem is that they try to blend the two too often, and they don't let. Just like there are some wrestlers that are meant to be mouthpieces, and there are some wrestlers that are meant to be the workers in the ring.
I mean, I know that your favorite female wrestler of all time is Mae Young. It's fine. By the way,
someone give her a hand.
She was easily the biggest man on the entire show.
Oh, she would outdrink you in a heartbeat.
I don't know if she could.
I think she could, probably.
Although you know what, since my liver started to hurt this weekend, maybe. But
maybe.
But I'll
give you heartburn twice.
She could definitely smoke more cigars.
See, I would love to smoke a cigar. I would have loved to have smoked a cigar with her.
Well, I believe that. I believe that. I'm going to move on to a different topic because we've been on almost 2 hours, so I just want to. So on SmackDown, Asuka defeated Alexa Bliss in a Queen of the Ring tournament.
A terminal. She killed her.
Tournament. She terminated him.
That's a hell of a match, Alexa Bliss. I don't understand. Like, how do you put them against each other so early on in the tournament when you know that they're both coming back from long stays? They both come back off of the injury list. I don't know what Bliss's issue was, but she was gone for a long time, and they're both incredibly over.
She was pregnant.
Yeah, so they're both incredibly over. Why this feels almost like a semifinals match?
It was a semifinals match.
Okay, we have a Queen of the Ring. Never mind. I need to learn how to read. But yeah,
it's a quarter semi.
Quarter semi.
Quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry. My problem, and it's just like yours. Alexa Bliss, in her appearances since coming back at Royal Rumble, has blown the roof off the fucking building.
Yeah.
And every single time she gets to like this, where it's the semifinal or something.
Right.
And it's like Triple H just doesn't understand. And by the way, this goes all the way back to when Triple H actually ran NXT. Triple H doesn't understand what he's got with Alexa Bliss. And as soon as she stopped being that cheerleader gimmick in NXT, Vince McMahon strapped a fucking rocket inside her butthole and pushed her to a 5-time women's champion.
And she earned every one of those.
100%.
She's a, I mean,
She
I
has all
actually
the
enjoy.
charisma in the world.
I enjoy watching her matches. Like I don't enjoy watching Liv Morgan's matches.
Interesting.
I am not a Liv Morgan fan. I don't buy into anything she does. I don't believe she's a threat to anybody. Alexa Bliss is different. Alexa Bliss has that little bit of an edge to her that I mean she almost reminds me of like back when she was in her cheerleader gimmick. She was reminding me of like Sunny from the 90s
Yeah.
where she was hot to trot, she knew it and she knew how to work it in her favor. So she
And
always
that was
had that
that was
mental game over her opponents.
that was obviously when she was the valet and she'd hop up
Mhm.
on the ring apron and the referee would be distracted by her and everything else, Wesley Blake and whatever. It's interesting though because her charisma level is through the roof.
Mhm.
Remember when we used to play that wrestling game online where you pick all your wrestlers and you go, okay, I'm going to put them all on like a show, and you could change their names and do whatever, but it was all
Yeah.
text based.
Right.
I can't remember what it was. It was like pro wrestling developer or some shit. I don't even remember what it was called. Her character would have a charisma level that if she was a 50 in fan support, within like 4 weeks, she'd be a 90 because it would just keep growing as long as you put her on the show. Like it could even be a promo, it could be whatever, it could be like, and that's the way she is. To your point about the Asuka thing, putting her against Asuka. Now, granted, you're saying Asuka's going to be on Raw, she's going to be on SmackDown. I don't know if they're going to like. Is this the prime moment to sit there and give Asuka a main event match at SummerSlam? It really is, but to get there, she's going to have to either beat Jade Cargill or she's going to have to beat Nia Jax. And
I'm fine with either of those.
But Asuka's had 2 matches
But
in a year.
Asuka's Asuka though.
Right. You're talking about a 2-time NXT Women's Champion. You're talking about a multiple-time Women's Champion. You're talking about like a Shayna Baszler style Women's Champion.
A believable physical threat with charisma to spare as well. I would much prefer to see either Alexa or Asuka in that role going into SummerSlam than I would Jade. Jade Cargill, to me, even though she had that impressive run in AEW, she's still an untested quantity, in my opinion, in her WWE run.
Though I will say this, I don't know who Jade Cargill would face, but it would be interesting to see Jade Cargill go up against whoever one of the women's champions are, and then have Naomi cash in on Jade Cargill, because then you instantly have that. So
well, and that's also a believable storyline to get her out of the Queen of the Ring tournament with Naomi coming in and just swatting her.
Have Naomi distract her and have her get knocked out of it. Maybe, but you know what? Maybe Naomi sits there and goes, "I'd rather have Jade than Nia."
That's true. That's true. But see, what we were saying earlier about like a Maya Lesnar. Right now, I think they have Nia Jax as that women's beast, right?
Who, by the way, since her return to WWE, Tino and I have said this, and you can enter your opinion, but has been a much more solid wrestler than she was in her last.
And for her to take all of the vitriol and criticism of her work in the past and the reputation she had earned, and to come back and be able to do what she's doing now unfazed by what came before, I think it's a testament to her testicular fortitude. But it is impressive. But she's also, listen, man, she's kind of damaged goods in the eyes of of fans. I think people when she
I don't,
shows
I don't,
up, people
I
don't
don't,
want
I
to
don't
see
think
her.
it's, I don't think it's much anymore.
No,
Now, I will say this: a couple weeks ago, when she had that chair in her hand, and Tiffany Stratton came in and did the low drop kick that caused that chair to cut her open, that was all on Nia.
hmm
And in fact, Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him, actually was explaining whenever he would take a Van Daminator or a Van Terminator, he would put that chair as close to his head as possible. So when it hit, yes, you hear that ding dong, but the fact is that you can't bust something open if it's right up against you.
right.
And her having it out here, that was totally on her, and I get that. But let's consider how often women's matches deal with that stuff.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
What's going on, Andy Birchfield? In the audience,
The Birch Man.
one of the Dragon's Lair art team guys. Go ahead, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. We're
Great to meet you at Heroes Con, Andy.
Andy, you are showing up about an hour and a half too late to sit there and talk about Heroes Con. We were talking about that for about an hour and a half. We're currently talking about what happened on Raw and SmackDown. We're talking about how Randy Orton defeated Sami Zayn in the King of the Ring semifinal. Sami Zayn, always a bridesmaid, never the bride. Is he ever going to get over this hump?
No. Not until he's done. The story of his career is to be the runner-up, to be the second fiddle. And I think it's not until he's going to basically be on his final tour when everything that he's been owed for being such a great performer and entertainer is going to come back to him.
Now, is the best performer that he's ever been when he was the conspiracy theorist bad guy?
Well, I think that led to it, but he's never been more over in WWE than when he was involved with the Bloodline. So you left your
I left my little like seat like cushion.
oh, you left that behind?
I did.
That's
Didn't
what
even
got you
realize
through the
it.
weekend.
I said take it with you, wash it. They were like,
Well,
it still has butt sweat on it.
yeah. And there's
No.
some bourbon in that sweat too.
I mean, you could drink it. I'm sure it's straight bourbon.
Yeah. No, but I've always been a fan of Sammy. I enjoyed his work as El Generico, but before then,
Absolutely.
I loved his work in NXT. I think he was able to bring out the best in Shinsuke when he first came over. Everything this guy does is fantastic.
Oh, now did you ever think that he was going to beat Randy Orton in the semifinal match of the King of the Ring?
No.
Now, there's two reasons why, by the way, in my estimation. One of them is that Sammy only goes over to Saudi Arabia when everything's okay.
Mhm.
And two, it's fucking Randy Orton.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, who's going through yet another renaissance period.
And I'll tell you, like personally, if you were telling me what's the best story going into the King of the Ring final in Saudi Arabia, I would have told you it's Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso. I wouldn't have said it's Cody Rhodes. I wouldn't have said it's Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. I would have said it's Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso, because watching the two of them put it all on the line for the championship match at SummerSlam, really, I mean, it could have captured heartstrings.
Right. Especially if you
yeah.
keep the friend component.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it would have been the Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, I'm sorry, I love you, super kick and win moment. You know what I mean?
Right. or I respect you too much not to give you my absolute best.
No, well, no. The two of them would sit there and say, "I respect you too much to not give you my absolute best," and
That's what I
that's
said.
why. No, well, you said I respect you too much to give you my best.
No, well, I meant the other thing.
So it would have like between the two of them, it would have ended up being
Slobber knocker.
it it would have been a super kick that Sami Zayn eats because he won't give the haluva kick to Jay.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Or the best way to actually have done that would have been if they had done where Sami Zayn joins Seth Rollins and takes that match against Gunther.
That'd be interesting. Have they planted any seeds for
There's
that?
been multiple seeds where, well, remember, Sami Zayn actually said, "We respect you too much to actually go against you. You could go over to SmackDown and you instantly have a match against the champion over there." And then Sami said, "No, I'm not gonna do it." But I could totally see Sami Zayn sitting there going, "Yeah, it makes sense now."
Yeah, yeah,
Like 6 months later, I could see it. Like, it's just the way they do shit like that. Anyways,
yeah.
all right. Next moment, since we don't have Tino with us, you ready?
I'm ready.
John Cena gave a pipe bomb during his match against Ron Killings. I don't want to say R-Truth, even though that's what the commentary team has been calling him. Ron Killings, and put CM Punk through the Slim Jim table, which apparently hurts 10 times as much as a regular table.
Accounting for how long he had to lay there unconscious.
I was shocked that Punk was willing to just lay there for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, he rolled around, he moved and everything else, but John Cena's pipe bomb mentioned Claudio Castagnoli, Nick Nemeth, and one Matt Cardona.
yeah, yeah. Little inside baseball there for folks who know the names of the guys who've been released. And now, when he did that before with Colt Cabana, when CM Punk did that, right? Uh, he was calling out his friends. So are we to assume that those guys are his friends, his close friends within wrestling?
I would think that no. I don't necessarily think John Cena has close friends in wrestling.
That's what I was thinking.
I think that he was mentioning the three names that would ring true to people that would go, man, they could have been WWE champion again.
Mm.
And specifically, Claudio Castagnoli has won the Ring of Honor championship, I think, twice, and yet literally is Jon Moxley's bitch. Then
Yeah.
you have Nick Nemeth, who has won the TNA World Championship, and by the way, I do feel is reinventing himself pretty well, but after losing that to Joe Hendry, has been tag teaming with his brother. Now, granted, it means he's got half the workload. So
Right.
maybe after 20 years, Dolph is actually like, hey, I want to take half the workload. Right?
There you go. Yeah.
And then you have Matt Cardona, who is still to this day the indie god. He is the biggest name on the indies. And I just want to point out that not only did John Cena mention him, but Cardona responded to him.
You knew he would.
Cardona did the same exact thing. John Cena got up on the top rope, sat there, and said, "Hi, Matt Cardona." And then all of a sudden at a GCW show this weekend, Matt Cardona got up there and he said, "Hi, John Cena." And I thought that was a great way to break through the walls of this shit. At the same time, it didn't do anything. It didn't do what the CM Punk pipe bomb did. And here's why I say this. CM Punk, when he did that pipe bomb, literally his contract ended like a week later.
Right.
So when he said, maybe I'll show up in Ring of Honor, it was a true possibility. Tino and I think, actually, on our podcast, because we didn't have a YouTube show back then, on our podcast, I think we actually discussed that. I think we actually discussed whether or not he would have the ability to take the WWE Championship, which he owned at that moment, and show up in Ring of Honor. Would WWE allow it? Would WWE actually sit there and videotape it from the sideline so that they could say on WWE television there was something that happened? WWE fully dropped the ball back then.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, now, if that same exact moment were to happen, Triple H would totally let CM Punk take the WWE Championship and go on Josh Barnett's Bloodsport.
Yeah.
He would absolutely let him go on TNA Wrestling. He would let him go on All Japan
anything
Wrestling.
anything not branded AEW, he would let them go on.
Well, anything not branded AEW, but also anything not associated with AEW.
Right.
So he could show up in AAA. He could show up, like I said, in All Japan Wrestling. He could show up at Bloodsport. He could do any of those shows. And at WWE right now, oh my God, dude, could you imagine if all of a sudden it was just like they had one guy getting a camera view of that shit?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
it'd be
Cardona responding was massive.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean anything because right now WWE has no interest in Matt Cardona.
Right.
Anyways, you ready for the next moment?
Yeah, I was just going to say the one thing that would have, I think,
please.
The one thing that would have really put that John's, because it was a great promo. It was a great promo segment. Of course, it has everything he's doing is having the opposite effect of what he's trying to do because he's trying to play super heel and he's coming across as super babyface.
Hold on. What did he say at the end of his promo?
Remind me.
He said, everything is turning on its edge, which means he wanted everybody to hate him.
Yeah.
It's having that opposite effect.
Right.
Which means he truly is the baby face that we all want him to be.
That's actually, you know what? That's pretty deep.
So I think if you go back and you listen to the end of that promo.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing he actually says, because he throws the microphone down, then he goes back and he gets it and he goes, "Thanks for letting me use your pipe bomb, because now it just makes you look like an even bigger asshole." And then he throws and then he walks off. But he did legitimately say, I'm basically turning the industry on its edge.
Only thing I wish he would have done was when he was name checking, if he would have thrown in a "Hi, Colt Cabana."
You know what? That one probably would have turned the entire industry on its nose. And it should have.
Yeah.
Because, as we all know, I mean, Colt Cabana worked for AEW, still supposed to, right?
Oh, geez. Well, if he does, he's been banished to the nether realm.
Well, I wouldn't think so because now they don't CM Punk. So why?
Right.
So
just the dig at CM Punk with him saying that I would have a hard time believing CM Punk could justify laying there kayfabe wise, while his now former best friend turned arch nemesis, who's persona non grata with him, is getting name checked.
It would have been good. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. That would have been something. But you know what? Triple H probably said,
Well,
if
he's
it was
got
even
to keep
brought up.
everybody happy. He's got to keep everybody happy.
If it was even brought up. I mean,
Right.
CM Punk would probably be like, who?
Yeah.
All right, I got one last piece that we can talk about tonight. You ready?
Ready?
Chelsea Green accepted a prom invite at Fanatics Fest this weekend.
She's fantastic.
And she's married to Matt Cardona. When asked about this, she actually said, Matt who? I don't care. I'm going to prom.
She's, she has been working her ass off her entire career.
She's amazing.
It's awesome to see her get the chance to really show who she is and not be limited in some, side role or background role as a member of somebody else's group, but to be able to lead her own group. I think, she's entertainment personified within the women's division.
I do have something else, by the way.
What's that?
Canelo today, Canelo Alvarez, multi-time heavyweight champion boxer, teased that he might have WWE in his future. I don't think this is really the case. You know what I think this is? TKO actually announced that they're going to have TKO boxing.
Oh, okay.
So I think boxers like Canelo may be the future of TKO boxing.
That seems like such a strange business decision because, ever since UFC, MMA has taken over and they own UFC, which means they pretty much own MMA, at least on a mainstream scale.
Some people still want to be boxers. I mean,
I used to be a big
Ngannou. Francis Ngannou went to Pro Fight League and decided I'm gonna box Tyson Fury, right? Knock Tyson Fury down.
Right. That's a rare circumstance. Because I believe also Ngannou, his dream wasn't to be a champion MMA fighter. His dream was to be a champion boxer.
Well, 100%. But I think that a lot of these guys were hoping to be a champion in something where they made the most money.
And that's a big money fight. Yeah.
So him sitting there going, hey, my hands hurt people.
Yeah.
Is one thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it just, though, it sounds, I can't remember the last time outside of a celebrity boxing or an aberration boxing match, like maybe Tyson Dante 2, or Tyson Dante 3, however many matches they've had. That was the last big legitimate boxing match that everybody was talking about. But even that paled in comparison to the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson stuff, or some of this other carnival sideshow boxing matches.
Remember, when it comes to the Jake Paul versus Tyson thing, there are 210 million people that have access to it.
Sure.
So no matter what, the amount of people actually watching it is going to be higher than what buys a pay-per-view because they have access to it. I
don't even know who the personalities within boxing right now are. That's how disconnected from it I am.
Me neither, but I also don't know who the personalities in MMA are. Like ever since like Matt Hughes and Georges St. Pierre, and we met I introduced you to a Georges this weekend. So there aren't many Georgeses.
No. No, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, the TKO seems to be making a lot of moves. WWE within TKO seems to be making a lot of moves with their acquisition of AAA and looking to acquire more properties across the world. So
I did hear that they truly only acquired 51% of AAA.
okay,
So that's why, like, even though everybody goes, "Oh, we have no intentions of turning it into WWE Light or anything else," it's kind of because they still have control over Lucha Libre.
right, right.
So even though WWE and TKO own 51% of it, it kind of has the ability to still be its own thing. Um,
Which I would argue is a great thing.
Absolutely. That Worlds Collide pay-per-view. I mean, Mr. Iguana. I,
Oh, yeah.
and you haven't even watched that, but I mean,
I've heard about it though.
like I said earlier, the like Santino walked so Mr. Iguana could run. You know,
If
like,
only Iguana had a JTG who could sell the bite perfectly.
well, even better, if only they actually already had it marketed, because apparently Mr. Iguana immediately after that was signed to a brand new WWE contract,
Yeah.
so they can make sure that they have the iguana available for sale.
Yeah, that definitely took them by surprise. They had no idea the storm that was going to be created when they put him on TV.
You know, I watched the Worlds Collide PLE on YouTube, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. The one thing that I was a little taken aback by was the fact that Conan kept asking if he could say something about the people. He's like, "Hey, do you mind if I go ahead and talk about this?" And Corey Graves is like, "Dude, it's just you and me talking. Let's do this."
I love Conan, man.
You know what it was? Conan was probably worried about his job,
Yeah,
but Corey Graves was astounded during that. But Conan sitting there being like, do you mind if I go ahead and talk about something? And he's like, "Go ahead. Like, just
yeah,
keep it up. Like, keep
yeah,
talking. Like,
yeah.
talk to me about Dr. Wagner Jr."
The thing I love about Conan is even today, if you go on Twitter and you DM him, he will respond,
Sure.
and he'll usually use it as a means to pimp his podcast and promise that he'll say your name on his podcast if you do so.
Now, does he? Does
I don't
he?
think he ever has. I don't think he ever has.
So he just offers to do it and then's like, "Yeah, fuck that guy."
Yeah, listen to my podcast. I'll mention your name in 3 weeks. All right. Well, I guess I'll take your word for it. I love that guy though.
All right, Junior, I've got nothing else. We've gone 2 hours. Tino still hasn't shown up.
Should we just keep broadcasting until he shows up? Are we going to be
No,
on
no,
for the next 7 days?
no. We'll be here till next Monday.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to sit in, for him, and big shoes to fill. I know I didn't fill them,
Tell,
but
tell tell everybody where you are on Dreadmutt #2 and why they should buy Dreadmutt #1.
yeah, I'm about 14 pages laid out for Dreadmutt #2, just trying to come up with the most exciting action sequences I can come up with for it. And after Heroes Con, I haven't been this motivated since that first email I sent to you back in January. So I'm re-energized and really excited to get this thing going. So for anybody that came through at Heroes Con, for anybody that's following my work or Rob on social medias in the interim, um, expect big things from Dread Mutt coming up in short order. And yeah, if you want to follow anything that I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram at Drawn by Junior. If you're interested in getting any kind of merch made, like, I can help you get enamel pins made, hats, stickers, shirts, you name it. Making tumblers and glassware now as well. These are all things that I can do. Hit me up at Angry Lemonade or
Just so everybody
angrylemonade.net.
knows, just so everybody knows, he only made that hat for himself.
Yeah.
Which he knows he would have been able to sell like 30 of those hats.
Nope. One of a kind, baby. Well, this is the Richardson, which is a really nice trucker hat, and it's an XL for my big boy head. But hey, listen, if enough people out there, if they beat down the door, if they do a letter writing campaign, if they sign petitions, I'm not against making money. So if somebody wants to get themselves a big fat boy hat, hit me up.
So they can follow you at Drawn by Junior and at Angry Lemonade.
Angry Lemonade. Yeah, my artwork and more Dread Mutt stuff will be seen on Drawn by Junior. All of my apparel decoration merch making is going on Angry Lemonade. But eventually, too, I've got my copies of Dread Mutt now. I'll be putting those up on angrylemonade.net to sell online if anybody wants to pick one of those up after it drops in comic book shops.
Damn, you forgot to ask me to sign any of those.
You know what? It's just a reason for me to make the drive out to see you.
I was just starting to think, you know what? Maybe they don't want me to sign them. Maybe they just want the artist to sign them. Maybe I'm just a tracer. Who knows? But anyway,
you'll always be more than a tracer to me, baby.
Well, that's just it. Junior, you know that I love you. Folks, just so you know, you can follow the show at Potsy and Tino on Twitter. We're also, I don't know, Tino's at Hootie Fan 81. Hootie Fan 81. Tino Gray Music on TikTok, all that good stuff. Here's the deal. I'm at Pochak, Rob Potsy Pochak on just about everything. So find me, like, subscribe, do all that bullshit. We'd really love to have more subscribers on this. I feel like when we have people like Junior or like last week when we had Sean Cruz on, you guys get more bang for your buck than you do just about anywhere else. It's been a blast. By the way, it was a blast all fucking weekend. I know that you told me you had a blast. I love you, brother. I'm glad to see that you got home okay. You look like you're actually awake, whereas I look like I'm half dead. So great deal there. Did you sleep 3/4 of the day? I don't know what's going on.
Oh no, I woke up just to come do this show. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, brother, I love you too. I love Tino. I love everybody that chose to come and hang out with us tonight, and everybody that came and hung with us on the weekend. It's been a blessing. Just this entire year has been just one giant blessing for me, and you're a big part of that, and I really do appreciate it.
Michael Turner ended the show about as well as we can with a little 9-9 Jones like we used to like to do. We're just like our boy, the New Yorker from another mother, Taz, where we like to sit there and throw a Jones in there or a yam bag every so often. So
yam bag.
So folks, I'm gonna go ahead and hit us up with the brand new exit song, and I hope you enjoy it. It's only like the third time we've played it, but we had a blast. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Ready? Should be Potsy and Tino.
For the Potsy and Tino show.
Thanks for watching.
Monday night, it's time to go. Turn on the screen with the good times shows. Wrestling life. Squared circle to the comic racks. They're throwing chairs and spitting facts. Live at 8, they'll likely be late. Grab a drink and speculate. It's the Potsy and Tino show, breaking it down with the pop culture glow. News, reviews, and a story or two. You never know what they're gonna do. So comment, subscribe, and like. It's time to roll with Potsy and Tino. Let's go!